Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. In this city, some people can make $1 million a day, while others can work 3 jobs a day, not make enough money to feed, clothe, and provide a home for their children. But a growing number of unemployed and low-wage working people are insisting on changing that. Camille Rivera, the executive director of UnitedNY, is helping them do that, and she's my guest today. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. I was thinking about you this morning as I came down Fifth Avenue. There's a line to get into Abercrombie.
Abercrombie, and Finch?
Yes.
That store, yeah.
A line of people to get in there to buy. Do they realize? They don't realize, I don't think, how little the people selling to them are making.
I don't think that people do realize it.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's something that people want to also think about, right? Because we live in such a kind of a need society for, materialistic things.
Yeah.
I love my stuff, my things as well.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go into a store and actually have to face the fact that the people behind in retail and behind the cashiers in the back stock rooms are making, low wages or are being denied, their rights.
Their opportunity
And their
to even make the low wages. So your organization is an umbrella organization, right?
Yes.
And what do you do?
So we're a coalition organization of labor and community organizations that focus on inequality issues, mainly focused on low-wage worker organizing and supporting campaigns all across the city to elevate the voices of workers.
And it's largely got it's got some union support. Why do unions support it?
I think, it's a long narrative, but I would say that, 60 years ago, there was always a connection between community and labor organizations fighting for people's rights. And I think over time, that got lost. And although there were always partnerships, I'll never say there aren't, there was never a space where they're collaboratively working together. Unions have their needs, which is to protect their workers, and that's important. Community organizations have a duty to do that for their communities and represent issues that are not necessarily close to labor. And there's not a space to kind of to combine that and coalesce around. And we felt that was desperately needed in New York. Labor made a choice to say we need this space in order to not only win on our campaigns and win for workers, right? But we also need it for the greater good. And I think
that whole greater good consciousness has basically disappeared in our country, I think.
Yeah. I think we've all become very self-serving agents.
It's an exceedingly troubling thing. People don't even vote.
Yeah.
And the lack of interest and the lack of concern. I remember when those unions were much more involved. It was the peace movement, anti-Vietnam was really the last time that I remember that whole coalition coming together and really striking. So you're into places, the retail workers, their unions, who are they covering?
So it depends, there's a combination of labor organizations and worker centers. Rock New York is a worker center that does a lot of the retail along with our WDSU. They also have a lot of locals. The service worker industry is a combination of 32BJ and RW and 1199. So, everyone kind of has different sectors.
RW being retail workers?
Yeah, the retail workers. And so there's a combination of various labor organizations. 32BJ represents service workers, which include residential, commercial, security, and airport workers. But predominantly, a number of them are low-wage workers, and they're definitely at the forefront of this fight. 1199 obviously does home care workers and assistance, at-home assistance, and they are definitely low-wage workers. I believe they're in the middle of a contract now. These are not rich jobs. These are not jobs, not even to the point of middle income jobs. These are jobs that are very low wages. And if it wasn't for labor, these wouldn't be jobs that had any future or an ability for people to be able to provide for their families, which is what everybody wants.
Yeah. It was so interesting because 32BJ was negotiating a contract, and I live in a condominium.
Oh, you do?
And so it's been months where they're preparing for the strike, and they have to worry about who's going to take the mail, who's going to let people in the building, who's going to take the garbage out, who's going to do all these terrible things. But there is a way that a building doesn't have to do that, and that is that they'll pledge to accept the results of the negotiation. But I was appalled, because we're very fond of the people who work in the building. I was appalled at the reaction of the board members that they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And why? I don't know. Labor has just had such a hard time lately, so it's very encouraging to see the drive and the attention that they're paying to these things. I mean, I think that we have to be so grateful for it.
Right. And
Yeah.
this is all about the narrative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this
Yep.
is about
What does it mean to be in this country? What does it
poor
mean
and
to be-
working class.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, people don't realize, it's like, it's during the Giuliani, I don't know if it was the Giuliani administration, I was really young, but I remember watching a news article, and the news article talked about, a news show, saying that everybody had to take all the homeless people off of the trains and in places where people could see them, because people did not want to
No more
see
cleaning.
homeless people.
Right. God forbid.
God forbid. And it stuck with me, right? I was young, but I remember it being like, okay, so you don't want to see what's really happening in our communities. The reason that people are poor and homeless has to do with the fact that we're in an economy that is unequal.
So were your parents socially conscious?
My father was. My mother was busy taking care of me and working, full time. My father was conscious in the sense of that he felt that there was definitely things that were wrong, but they weren't activists. They were just.
So what pushed you on? Was it a conscience?
It's a combination of things. My mother worked really hard, and I remember living in a one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx, and my mother counting pennies and change because she didn't have money to feed me for dinner. And I remember her taking me to a restaurant and just giving the change to the waiter. And she had a job. She had actually graduated from college. My mom was a college graduate, and was working at a computer-based some company that she those big computers or whatever, making nothing, right? And my father, I just always knew that there was something wrong with that, right? Here's my mother working really hard, trying to make ends meet, having more than some people in terms of education, and still just struggling.
So did school help you at all?
Yeah, I was, I had my daughter very young. I was 16 when I had her, and I had it was just focus. I was like, I gotta graduate, and I went into medical science. I wanted to be the doctor or a nurse, and I went into Queensborough Community College, and then I went into Queens College, and I was studying all the time, I was working full time and studying, and then I had this toddler, and I remember stopping at a table because they were giving out free deodorants and toothbrushes and toothpaste. And I was so broke, and shampoo. And I was like, I need some of this. So I remember trying to grab it, oh no, you have to fill out a card. And I don't know if you know Walter Rodriguez. He actually works in Colombia, and he works on some homeless issues. And he was the one at the table, and he said, no, you got to fill out a card. This is an organization called NYPIRG, and we want, we work on a number of issues.
What?
NYPIRG.
Oh, NYPIRG.
Homeless outreach.
Yeah.
Higher education. And I was always very angry when I walked around my neighborhood. It was just so unfair, education-wise. The buildings were always messed up. There was, everything was always wrong. There was never any seamlessness. It was never easy. And I was like, okay, no problem. Sign the card. Give me my toiletries. And then 2 weeks later, I get a call, and it's like.
They got you.
Yeah, he's like, you need to come to this meeting. I'm like, why? He goes, you signed this card, remember? You said you would come. And, he had totally organized me. And I was like, oh, God. Fine, I'll go. And I welcome him. He was a really good organizer. And he had 300 people in the room. And when you're an organizer at a college and you get 300 people in a room.
You're doing well.
You're doing well. And I remember seeing a higher education stuff. And it was during the remediation stuff. And when they were abolishing remediation into the 4-year programs of CUNY. And they were also talking about homeless outreach. And at that point, homeless was a huge, is obviously. Right. They were in the big fight with the mayor, with Giuliani on it. So, you know, I just was like amazed, and it just clicked, and I just found my space, and it was done, and I just started organizing from then on.
We could go on forever discussing resiliency and philosophy and everything. Let's talk about your group.
Yeah, sure.
There are 4 major places that you're organizing, right?
Yes.
It's the airport workers, the car washers, the retail workers, and the fast food people.
Right, so so just to be clear, we work primarily on fast food airport work. We have a table of low-wage workers where we have community organizations like New York Communities for Change and Make the Road New York who are managing the car wash campaign. They work with us to create a space and a table. And we primarily work on the airport workers and fast food. And it's a collaboration, right? We don't necessarily entirely work with the retail. We do work with them from time to time. We have a really what's great about this table is it's a space. I'm not driving any of the organizing. I'm not talking to workers on the ground. What I'm doing is providing space for the story to get out. So I don't really know what strategy they're doing. I don't really have a sense of their actual, like, okay, if we do this, we do this.
And these are the actual workers.
Yeah.
Who are designing what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of the organization, the workers, you know, with fast food.
The organized.
Yeah. I mean, like, the fast food worker movement is definitely a worker-driven movement with community. And so, you know, they come back and they say, we're thinking about doing these spaces, and we try to figure out what's the space for narrative, and we support them. We work with coalition groups, we talk to organizations, and we say, look, these workers need your support. Can you support them? And it's never hard it's just never hard because people actually know that this is a good thing to do, and they know that it's not.
What struck me in these industries is the lack of knowing when you're going to work, and the effort on the part of the employers to limit the time so you're not a full-time employee.
Right.
And so you never know also when you're going to work, or the ability when business is slow to say, go home.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of protection? There's no protection.
There is no protections, and you know, we have tons of stories where a fast food worker, you know, RAP is doing a whole thing on the Just Hours campaign. I don't know if
RAP stands for what?
The Retail Action Project, and I think RW as well. They're doing something on the council around making sure and ensuring that everyone has like a full schedule, or at least advance notice to their schedules. I don't actually understand the entire legislation, but it's actually protecting this situation. But we have tons of stories where they have a job, and then, you know, like all of a sudden they go every week, they get their schedule, and one week they work 40 hours, and then the next week they're on one day. And I didn't realize that this was actually a problem. I mean, I used to work in a retail store, was it? I worked for, I think, Blockbuster Video. And they did the same thing to me. You work 2 days next week. But I was like, but I want to work a 40-hour week. And it's totally unjust. It's totally legal to do it. And how do you live on that? How do you provide for your family if this is your only source of income? How is it fair that you're working in a retail job or in a service industry job, and you need to pay rent every month? It's not like the rent changes based on your work schedule, right?
Right. No.
Or food, you know? I mean, so it's an unjust, unequal way, and it skirts the system.
And do you know what the progress is with the Port Authority and the airports? I mean, the workers who work for the Port Authority, that's a separate thing from the contractors. The airlines will contract out for different things, right? And there's a disparity not only in the salaries, but in the benefits and everything.
Yeah, there's definitely an unequal disparity.
And that's been nationally, that's been, was it in Seattle? I think that they settled a big
I don't
strike.
know if they settled, but I know that Seattle actually was able to raise its wages to 15.
Right.
And that was a huge deal.
Yeah, but I think the C-Train, or whatever it was called.
CTAC.
Right. I think that something came out of that.
Right.
But so the effort to raise the minimum wage, where are we with that?
You know, 2 years ago, or a year ago, there was a campaign to raise wages in New York State. We worked really hard to try to get to a higher level even before the legislation was introduced. It didn't pan out that way. We were able to get something of an increase, but with it came really bad policies such as the Teen Tax Credit Act, Teen Tax Credit, which allows basically employers who have teenagers under 18 to actually get a credit. It actually skirts, you know, there's also tip wage issues. There's a lot of issues that came with that. And I think that our coalition that include a number of coalition organizations and groups like WFP, 32BJ, New York Communities for Change, Make the Road, all agree that we need to be able to localize our ability to raise our own wages, that municipalities all across the state have to be able to control their own economic future, because it's just not working. New York has, you know, billions of dollars of revenue that come out of here, and we can afford to do that. And workers are just not going to get by unless we actually, you know, do something that allows us to kind of.
So we're either at the governor's mercy, or we have to have a charter revision. Is that what it is?
No. There's
don't
a bill.
need a constitutional.
No. There's a bill within the within the Assembly right now that's being and the Senate, that was introduced by Camille Rivera and Andrew Stewart Cousins, who's a Democratic conference leader.
Any Republicans on the Senate side?
Not at this moment, and. Although we hope maybe that this would be an opportunity. I mean, it's not a bill that should be very controversial. We're not asking for any increase. We're just asking for the ability for municipalities that include Syracuse and Buffalo and other folks to actually do this. And there has been instances nationally where this has actually happened, and you know the world doesn't.
But
come
the
to an
city
end.
has this special thing with home rule, which is. That's what I was talking about, the basic thing.
Yeah, you don't.
We really can't do these things by ourselves,
No,
like
you don't
raising a
need
tax.
Yeah, you don't need a
can't
home
do it.
rule. I mean, you don't.
That would be the more basic way of doing it, I guess.
Right. I mean, you definitely just need the Assembly and the Senate to pass this, and the governor's signature.
And the governor can't do it himself?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
I should check. I don't know if the governor can.
And we're talking about raising it to $10 or more?
Well, you know,
$15?
everybody, you know, the Fast Food Forward campaign believes that $15 is what we need. You know, if you think about $10, right? That's what, 20,000 a year or something like that.
It's not very much.
I mean, who lives on 20,000?
Nobody.
No one. People skirt by and hustle, just coming from the neighborhood and coming from the Bronx. I know people who, make 15,000 and 20,000 a year, but they are, you know, skirting by. You know, they're on food stamps, they're on Medicaid, they are struggling. They're in roommate situations. They're living with their family. They're sharing a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom apartment with 8 people. Like, they are not surviving.
But with a decent
in a decent quality of life.
What interests me about all of this is it's really a grassroots movement. When you mention all these different groups, they are really it's new, I think, in the last how many years? 5 years?
Yeah.
Something.
I mean, everybody works in their side. I mean, what's really exciting about this low wage table, right, is that, you know, there is everybody kind of works in their own. Everyone does this, right? We work in our silos. We're kind of laser focused on our work. You know, this is a space where we're saying, no, we want workers to tell the story, and that's what the table really is. Having, you know, we do worker exchanges where workers from all different, forms of, industries sit down and actually talk about what's going on with their lives. And we've done a couple of stories that have come out around their lives and how they're coming together and having this discussion. We don't believe that we don't believe. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's like the consciousness raising sessions from the women's movement early on.
Yeah.
You know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
There are all these
You're
other
not
people
alone.
doing it, and how are they coping and exchanging the stories
did
gives
this.
you that confidence and determination to go out and do something.
Right, and and I think the Occupy moment had a lot to do with that. I think the issues of immigration have a lot to do with that. You know, we did this a long time ago. I mean, we do rapid response work. We do, anytime that there's an issue and a narrative, we really want to try to find the opportunity to put the story out there for workers. And one of the great, it wasn't like a huge press thing. It actually was pretty good. It was Tax Day maybe 2 years ago. And we organized a massive march and a press conference. And, nobody loves Tax Day, and everybody knows that people do something on Tax Day, and it never gets any narrative, and never gets any press, because people are like, you have to pay your taxes. What do you really want to bother me about this? But the issues of taxes comes home to roost for everyone, right? Including low-wage workers, including immigrant workers. Like, all of them pay taxes. And yet they're making, less than minimum wage at some points, because their wages are being stolen. Anyway, there was this one moment where there was a press conference. We had low-wage workers from every single kind of sector. And instead of focusing on the corporations, we focused on the workers and their stories with the contractors. And one of the workers came back and said to me, you know, I've never really stood alongside another worker who was going through what I was going through. And that's what we want to do. We're breaking barriers, and I think that's one of the, breaking barriers between the story, and so people don't live in the silos that they're
and
in.
you're really enlarging, it's from the bottom up. So
yeah.
That means that these are going to be people who are productive, not only for their own families, but also understand what it means to make change. So
Yeah.
we can assume that they'll be voting and getting more involved in their communities.
I know, God forbid that happen.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? So do you do you do any political work? Is it mostly restricted to the working party?
My background is organizing and politics, so I do have relationships, but I like the field. Mm-hmm. I like the ground game. Mm-hmm. I have, relationships when I need to have them, but, I let other people kind of deal with that because there's so many different political analysis and, things that happen. I really like to figure out how we win from the ground.
So how can we make other people be the same as you?
I don't know.
No, seriously. It's what, that's what's so important.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so unusual, mm-hmm. to have that interest and that passion to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fire in the belly, I think.
Yeah. And how do you manage? You've got children at home.
Yes, I have a husband and 3 kids. I have a daughter who's 18. She's in Syracuse College. And
I have a grandson there.
Oh, yeah, she loves it.
Yeah.
She loves it too much. And I have a 4-year-old. She's my stepdaughter, but she's my daughter. I love her dearly. And I have a 15-month-old. And it's definitely crazy in our house. It's fun.
And your husband's an organizer also?
Yes, my husband is the director of New York Communities for Change, and he is.
And where do who takes care of the kids during the day?
We have a daycare that we take Lucy to, and Violet goes to school. And my husband, we're lucky. My husband and I have a very, we're working all the time, but we're lucky enough to have a good flexible schedule that allows us to take care of our children.
It's so great. Did you meet during Wall Street?
Yeah, so this is, okay, so now I want to actually go through this because there's all these different narratives about how my husband and I met. And I'm just like, so there was an NPR story a couple of moons ago, like a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, about how it was implied that John and I met at a drum circle or something like that. That is not how we met. We met at a fundraiser for Align, and we're already starting to work together on a number of different kind of rapid response, fast food, not fast food, rapid response equality issues and campaigns. We were working on the millionaire's tax at that point, organizing a millionaire's
This was after,
it was like right before like
Occupy
a month and a half. Well, I had met him 6 months before that, and he says I never paid attention to him. But then right before that, I had met him again and started working with him on some other stuff, and then Occupy hit, and he was very much involved and said, you really need to understand what's going on here. And then when I started, I realized that this was just totally an amazing opportunity because they were doing something that we had been trying to figure out and could not break the ceiling. We could not break through. And here's these kids and they sleep at a park, and all of a sudden we're talking inequality. And I think that's kind of how we actually started to work. And then when Occupy kind of simmered a bit and just started to kind of go away, we made a commitment to make sure that we were going to continue that fight with the story of low-wage workers.
It was very disappointing that it kind of got so spread out and diversified.
Yeah.
It was very exciting, I thought.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's, I think the people who are running the campaign, I think they're not gone at all. I mean, I work with them in all different angles.
They're all over.
I mean, you have Mark Reed, who runs the Light Brigade, and then Lainey Stamp, who is now doing the debt work, and I think she's in Atlanta now. And you have Yotam Moran, who's running a whole camp on how to train organizers. And, I just think that this is like a moment where, it needed to happen. It didn't need to happen for a long, long time, but it did need to happen. And it's just hard because people get so attached to it, and they're like, well, how do we recreate it?
Yeah.
It'll come back in its own way. It just won't be the way that everybody thinks it is.
And meanwhile, the city continues having almost, what's the second highest disparity?
Yeah.
And what is it, equal to, I think on your website I read equal to Bolivia?
Yes.
The disparity between the top and the bottom?
Yes.
Incredible, huh?
Yes, it is incredible.
So are we going to expect one day an explosion from the grassroots? I hate to use that word. Is there another word we can use?
I was like, I don't know if we should use explosion.
I know.
Look,
I don't mean explosion.
We have, this is happening. You know, like look at the fast food movement, right? It started in New York and just expanded nationally. I mean, like it's all over. I mean, these are workers who are, you know, this is like, did you ever go to, you know, get yourself a burger? I'm sure everybody has, and realize that the cashier behind you makes, you know, barely nothing? Right. You don't think about that. Right. And the reason that it's starting to take hold is because there is a fast food restaurant at like two in each block. Yeah. And it's a source of income for so many people. And it's also a space where they are making billions of dollars. It's just a clear message, right? That you know, it's an unfair, clear message.
So we're going to follow you.
Oh, great.
And certainly, I wish people could help. Do you have a website?
Yes, they can go to www.unitedNY.org. For the Fast Food Forward campaign, I believe it's www.fastfoodforward.org.
And is there a directory to links to other organizations?
Yes, we don't have. I have to double check if we actually have links, but they could easily email at info@unitedNY.org and get more information, and we can connect them.
I think that if more people knew of all the different organizing groups and stuff, the more the more hopeful and excited they'd be.
Yeah, I mean, we have a meeting. I don't know if this is airing, but we have a meeting this week, a coalition meeting. We invite everyone to come and participate.
And where is it going to be?
It's going to be, I believe, 25 West 18th Street at 6:30 on Wednesday. So if it does air, we should let people come at 6:30.
So very much. Thank you very much.
No problem. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.